Some of you walked in here today carrying weight you never told anybody about, smiling on the outside but trembling on the inside. But hear me. You didn't come this far to collapse. The enemy has been whispering, you're about to break. But I came with a word straight from heaven. God won't let you break. Before the pressure crushes you, his power will catch you. Before the storm sweeps you away, his hand will sustain you. You are not as fragile as your feelings. You are as strong as his faithfulness. I know what it feels like to be stretched thin, to be pressed on every side, to feel like one more problem, one more disappointment, one more heartbreak will be the thing that snaps you in half. But somebody needs to hear this. God monitored every moment of that pressure. He measured it, he weighed it, he examined it, and he said they can handle it. I built them for this. I fortified them for this. You are still here not because you didn't bend, but because God wouldn't let you break. If you could have broken, you would have. But purpose held you together. Grace held you together. Destiny held you together. And today, you're about to understand that the pressure you feel is not a sign of destruction. It's a sign of development. Pressure does not show up in your life to expose your weakness. It comes to announce your strength. Many people misunderstand the role of pressure. They think that because they feel stretched, because they feel strained, because the weight on their shoulders is heavy, that something must be wrong with them. They assume the pressure means they are failing, that they are lacking, that they are somehow unprepared or unequipped. But pressure is not an indicator of weakness. Pressure is a revealer of strength. If you were weak, you wouldn't feel pressure because weak things break before pressure ever becomes recognizable. If you were fragile, you wouldn't even have made it to the level where pressure could be applied. The fact that you feel pressure is evidence that God sees more in you than you see in yourself. Think about it. No one tests the limits of something that's cheap, disposable, or easily damaged. Nobody puts pressure on plastic the way they test steel. Nobody places heavy loads on cracked foundations. Pressure is reserved for things that are built to endure. So when you feel the weight on your life increasing, when your responsibilities start stacking up, when life's demands grow louder and fiercer, understand this: you are not being punished, you are being proven. Pressure is heaven's way of showing you the strength that was already inside you, the strength you didn't know you had, the strength that only surfaces when life presses in from all sides. Pressure reveals what comfort never could. We all love comfortable seasons, the peaceful days, the easy days, the days where everything clicks and nothing shakes. But comfort never demands strength. Comfort never calls you deeper. Comfort never pulls out the greatness buried within you. It is only when you feel the squeeze, only when you feel the stretching, only when you are pushed beyond what you thought were your limits, that you discover that God designed you with more capacity than you realized. The moment when you say, I can't take another step, and somehow you still move forward, that's strength being revealed. The moment you feel like collapsing, but something inside you whispers, just one more day, that's strength being revealed. The nights you cried but still woke up determined. The moments you were tired but kept showing up. The times your heart was hurting, yet you continued loving. All of that is strength, not weakness. Pressure also separates what is temporary from what is eternal. When life presses you, the superficial layers fall away. The opinions of people lose their power. The false priorities crumble. The shallow relationships reveal themselves. Pressure purifies your life because it pushes away the things that were never meant to sustain you. What remains? Your faith, your tenacity, your resilience, your God-given fire. That is the lasting part of you. That is the real you. And that real you is stronger than any obstacle, any attack, any setback that tries to rise up against you. The enemy hopes pressure will silence you. He hopes it will scare you. He hopes it will intimidate you into quitting. But pressure has a strange way of doing the opposite when God is with you. Instead of crushing you, it awakens the warrior within you. Instead of breaking you, it toughens you. Instead of silencing you, it gives you a voice you didn't know you had. Pressure births prayer. Pressure produces focus. Pressure sharpens vision. Pressure positions you for breakthrough. The very thing that was meant to destroy you becomes the thing that develops you. You don't know how strong you really are until you have no choice but to be strong, and you don't know how much God has invested in you until you stand in a moment where everything around you says you should fall apart. But you don't. You're still standing. You're still breathing. You're still fighting. If weakness had been your portion, you would have broken a long time ago. If fragility had been your identity, the storm that hit you last year would have shattered you. The loss you endured would have taken you out. The betrayal would have crushed your spirit. The disappointment would have swallowed your hope. But look at you, still here, still moving, still believing, still reaching. And the reason you are still standing is because pressure revealed something heaven always knew about you. You are unbreakable in God's hands. You might feel the squeeze, but you will not collapse. You might feel the weight, but you will not crumble. You might feel the strain, but you are stronger than you think, because God himself reinforced you with his presence. He did not build you with temporary material. He built you with eternal purpose. He fortified you with his spirit. He strengthened you with his word. He surrounded you with his promises. Pressure is not your enemy. Pressure is your evidence. Evidence that you are chosen. Evidence that you are capable. Evidence that you are trusted by heaven with something greater. When you recognize this, pressure stops feeling like a threat and starts becoming a sign that something powerful is being formed within you, a sign that you are stepping into a new level, a sign that God is preparing you for what he has already prepared for you. So the next time pressure visits your life, don't panic. Don't assume something is wrong with you. Don't think you are failing. Instead, pause and remind yourself, this pressure is proof of my strength. This pressure is proof that God sees more in me. This pressure is proof that I will not break. Because pressure doesn't reveal your weakness, it reveals your strength. When God allows pressure to rest on your life, it is never random. He is a master builder, a precise architect, and nothing you carry is accidental. Every weight, every responsibility, every assignment, every season of stretching has been regulated by his hand. God never throws you into situations unprepared, and he never burdens with something that exceeds your divine capacity. Even when it feels overwhelming, even when it feels like too much, even when you wonder why the load seems heavier for you than for others, God has already measured the exact level of strength he placed inside you. Before the weight ever touched your shoulders, he examined it, evaluated it, and determined that you could carry it, not by your own ability, but by the supernatural grace he placed within you. Imagine a skilled trainer who works with an athlete. The trainer doesn't start by piling on the heaviest weight. He doesn't hand out loads that will injure, break, or ruin the person. Instead, he studies the athlete's capabilities, pays attention to their growth, examines their endurance, and designs a plan that stretches them without destroying them. The trainer adds weight gradually, enough to provoke strength, but never enough to cause collapse. If human trainers know how to regulate weight to build strength, how much more does a perfect God know how to regulate the spiritual, emotional, and mental load you carry? Sometimes we misinterpret the weight on our lives because we assume that if we feel overwhelmed, it must mean the burden is too heavy. But feeling overwhelmed does not mean you are incapable. It means you are being stretched beyond your comfort zone. Growth rarely feels light. Development rarely feels easy. Anything God plans to elevate, he first strengthens. Anything God intends to use greatly, he first stabilizes. The weight you feel is not an announcement of your breaking point. It is an announcement of your becoming. God will never permit a weight that will crush you. He knows the breaking point of every human heart. He knows how much pressure your mind can withstand. He knows how many responsibilities your spirit can steward. He sees the limits that you cannot see, and he sets divine eyes around the burdens that come into your life. Even the enemy cannot exceed those boundaries. Satan doesn't get free access to torment you or overload you. He must pass through God's permission. And God, being the guardian of your destiny, says no to anything that would destroy you, and yes only to what will develop you. If you knew how many things God blocked, how many pressures he refused to let near you, how many loads he removed before you ever saw them, you would thank him daily. The fact that you only feel what you feel now is proof that God has already done the heavy regulating. You're not carrying the full weight of the battle. You're carrying only the part God knows you can handle. That means if it's in your life, it's manageable. If it's on your shoulders, it's liftable. If it's in your path, you're equipped for it. You may not feel ready, but God is not basing the load on your feelings. He's basing it on your inner capacity, a capacity He designed. God regulates your weight the same way He regulates the strength of a storm. A storm might rage around you, but God decides how close it gets, how long it lasts, and how intense it becomes. Before the storm reaches your life, God sets its limits. Before the challenge reaches your doorstep, God restricts its power. Before the trial touches your heart, God sets the boundaries. It may feel fierce, but it is contained. It may feel heavy, but it is monitored. You might feel pressed, but you are protected. You may feel stretched, but you are still secured in His hands. This divine regulation is the reason you survived seasons that others could not have survived. It's the reason you endured heartbreak that could have shattered someone else. It's the reason you walked through fire and came out without the smell of smoke. People wonder how you're still standing. They wonder why you didn't lose your mind. They wonder how you didn't collapse under the pressure. What they don't understand is that God was regulating the weight the whole time. You were never carrying the full burden. You were carrying the portion God allowed, and grace carried the rest. Sometimes you pray for God to remove the pressure, but what He does instead is add strength. You ask Him to lighten the load, but He increases your capacity. You ask for an easier path, but He enlarges your foundation so you can withstand the journey. You pray for relief, and He responds with resilience, because God is not just interested in making you comfortable. He is committed to making you capable, durable, unshakable. He knows what He placed in you, and He knows what He intends to bring out of you. And for that purpose to manifest, He regulates the pressure so it shapes you without suffocating you. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not that God lifts the weight off you, but that He strengthens you to lift it. The victory is not always in the removal of the burden, but in the revelation of capacity. When you look back and see what you carried, the grief you endured, the responsibilities you managed, the storms you navigated, you'll realize that you were stronger than you ever knew. And you'll realize that strength wasn't yours alone. It was God in you, God with you, God sustaining you. So don't fear the weight. Don't resent the load. Don't despise the pressure. If God allowed it, He has already equipped you for it. You're not carrying this alone. You're carrying what He regulated, what He measured, what He knew you could handle. And because He regulated the weight, you will not break. You will be built. You will not collapse. You will be strengthened. You will not be overwhelmed. You will overcome. The weight is not there to crush you. It's there to crown you. Breaking is not in your divine design. You were not crafted by heaven to shatter under pressure, to crumble under disappointment, or to collapse under the weight of life's trials. You may feel fragile at times. You may feel stretched to your limit. You may feel weary and worn, but feeling vulnerable is not the same as being breakable. There is a difference between being pressed and being destroyed. There is a difference between bending and breaking. There is a difference between feeling overwhelmed and being overcome. And God, who handcrafted your purpose before you ever took your first breath, wove into your spiritual DNA a resilience that the world cannot explain and that the enemy cannot dismantle. You were shaped by the hands of a God who does not make mistakes. He did not make you out of cheap material. He didn't speak you into existence with a weak word. He formed you with intention. He breathed His strength into you. He wrapped you in purpose. He fortified you with destiny. Everything about you was crafted with care, precision, and power. And because God decided that you would carry His image, your design reflects His durability. God cannot be broken. And if you are made in His likeness, then breaking cannot be your final story. This is why the moments that felt like they would destroy you didn't. This is why the heartbreak that seemed unbearable did not tear you apart. This is why the disappointment you thought would crush your spirit only made you wiser. This is why the betrayal you didn't see coming did not ruin your capacity to trust. You were built with a supernatural reinforcement on the inside. The enemy has tried to break you multiple times, but something in you, a God-placed strength, a divine backbone, a spiritual resilience, refused to collapse. Sometimes what feels like breaking is actually stretching. Sometimes what feels like shattering is actually shaping. Sometimes what feels like the end is actually a beginning that has not revealed itself yet. God will allow certain things to stretch you, but He will not allow them to snap you. He will permit seasons that bend you in directions you never expected, but He will not let them bend you beyond what your destiny can withstand. You may wobble, but you won't fall apart. You may cry, but you won't crumble. You may question, but you won't quit, because you were not designed to break. You were designed to endure. Think of a palm tree in the middle of a hurricane. The winds can reach unbelievable speeds, bending that tree almost parallel to the ground. The storm can last for hours, even days. The rain beats against it, the wind pushes against it, but when the hurricane finally passes, that tree stands back up again. Why? Because the palm tree was built with flexibility. Its strength is not in staying rigid, but in its ability to bend without breaking. God designed you the same way. Life storms may bend you, but they will never have the authority to break you. You may go down in a season, but you will get back up after the storm passes. That bounce back ability is proof of your divine design. God knew there would be days when you felt weak. He knew there would be seasons when the enemy tried to convince you that you were too fragile, too damaged, too overwhelmed to keep going. But God's truth is louder than the enemy's lies. He says, "You are strong in me. You are upheld by my hand. You are covered by my grace. You are anchored by my purpose." You are not standing because life has been easy. You are standing because God has held you steady. You are not surviving because you are tough. You are surviving because you are tailored by heaven to withstand pressure. The enemy wants you to mistake your emotions for your identity. He wants you to believe that because you feel weak, you are weak. Because you feel tired, why are collapsing. Because you feel stretched, you are breaking. But feelings are not facts. Your emotions may fluctuate, but your divine structure remains the same. You were built with endurance. You were built with perseverance. You were built with Holy Spirit reinforcement that cannot be dismantled by life's storms. Every time you walked through a valley and came out with your faith intact, it was a reminder that you don't break. Every time you faced loss and kept breathing, kept praying, kept moving, it was proof that you don't break. Every time you endured stress, pressure, conflict, and uncertainty and still showed up for your life, it was heaven testifying on your behalf, this one cannot be broken. You've had seasons where you felt like you were at your limit, where you thought one more disappointment would be the thing that finally shatters you. Yet here you are, still here, still standing, still believing, still hoping. That is not accidental. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is evidence of divine craftsmanship. God ensured that breaking would not be your destiny. You were made to withstand battles others would never survive. You were made to navigate storms that should have drowned you. You were made to rise again when circumstances tried to bury you. When God created you, He installed a kind of spiritual reinforcement around your purpose, a sacred strength that activates under pressure. You don't see it when life is calm, but when the storm comes, that strength rises up and carries you. You don't feel it in peaceful seasons, but when life hits you hard, that supernatural durability steps forward. What you thought would crush you becomes the moment you discover what God placed in you. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, the next time your knees shake beneath the weight of life, the next time tears fall and fear whispers, you're out to break, remind yourself of this truth. Breaking is not in your design. You were formed by God, reinforced by grace, sustained by His presence, and upheld by His promises. You may bend, but you will not break. You may struggle, but you will not shatter. You may hurt, but you will not be destroyed. God did not bring you this far to leave you fragile. He built you to endure, to overcome, and to rise again. Every single time. Your strength does not come from your own power, your own discipline, your own talent, or your own determination. Everything that has held you together, everything that has sustained you, everything that has kept you standing when life tried to knock you down has come from a source far greater than yourself. You are not standing today because you are strong. You are standing because God is your strength. There is a difference. Human strength has limits. Human energy runs out. Human endurance grows tired. But when your strength comes from God, you tap into a well that never runs dry, a source that never depletes, a power that never fades. There have been moments when you looked at yourself in the mirror and wondered, how am I still functioning? How am I still moving? How am I still getting up every day with everything I've been through? The answer is simple but profound. It wasn't you. It was God in you. It was his power lifting you when your spirit was heavy. It was his hand steadying you when your world was shaking. It was his breath filling your lungs when anxiety tried to suffocate you. It was his strength showing up at the exact moment your own strength ran out. Life has a way of presenting challenges that are bigger than us. Some battles are too exhausting, some storms are too fierce, some heartbreaks are too deep, and some responsibilities are too heavy for human strength alone. But those are the moments that reveal the difference. CE between self-powered living and God-powered endurance. When you rely solely on yourself, you eventually hit a wall. But when you draw your strength from God, walls become doors. Obstacles become opportunities. Weakness becomes the very place where his power is made perfect. Many people assume that feeling weak is a sign of failure. They believe that if they were truly strong, they wouldn't feel overwhelmed or exhausted. But in God's kingdom, recognizing your weakness is not failure. It is revelation. It is the moment you realize that your strength was never meant to be the thing that carries you. God did not design you to live life on your own strength. He designed you to live connected to his strength. Your weakness is the doorway that invites his power to enter. Your limitations are the spaces where his unlimited strength shows up. When you reach the end of yourself, you step into the beginning of God. Think about all the times you said, I can't do this anymore, and yet somehow you kept going. Think of the days when your heart was heavy, your mind was tired, and your body was weary, yet you still showed up, still pushed through, still pressed forward. Those were not the moments of your strength. Those were the moments of his grace. Grace is God lending you his strength. Grace is God filling the gap between your ability and your assignment. Grace is God pushing you when you would otherwise collapse. Grace is God whispering, you may be weak, but I am strong in you. There were seasons when you felt alone, but the truth is God was carrying you. Times when you felt empty, but God was pouring into you. Moments when you didn't know how to stand, but God was holding you upright. You didn't always recognize it. You didn't always feel it, but his strength was beneath you like a floor you could not fall through. He was the unseen force stabilizing you, the invisible anchor securing you, the quiet power strengthening you from the inside out. And it's important to understand that God does not just give you strength, he becomes your strength. He doesn't hand you a little power and then step away. He enters your life, dwells in your spirit, fills your heart, and empowers you to do what you cannot do alone. When you speak words you didn't think you had the courage to say, that's God's strength. When you forgive someone who wounded you deeply, that's God's strength. When you face a fear that once paralyzed you, that's God's strength. When you walk through a valley without losing your mind, that's God's strength. When you rise after being knocked down, that's God's strength. This is why the enemy fights you so hard, not because of your strength, but because of the source of your strength. He knows that as long as you stay connected to God, you are unstoppable. He knows that as long as you lean on God, you cannot be broken. He knows that as long as you draw from God's strength, every attack against you will fail. The enemy is not intimidated by what you can do on your own. He is terrified of what you can do when God is strengthening you. Sometimes God allows situations that are too big for you on purpose, not to defeat you, but to teach you dependency, to show you that you were never meant to be self-sufficient, to reveal to you that you are strongest when you are surrendered, not when you are stubborn. God is not interested in watching you pretend to be strong. He is interested in giving you the strength to become everything he designed you to be. You may feel tired, but God is not tired. You may feel empty, but God is full. You may feel weak, but God is mighty. You may feel overwhelmed, but God is stable. And when you tap into him, his strength becomes your strength. His perseverance becomes your perseverance. His courage becomes your courage. His endurance becomes your endurance. So if today you feel like your strength is running out, don't panic. Don't assume it means something is wrong. It simply means it's time to shift the weight from your shoulders to God's. Time to stop relying on your own power and start drawing from his. Time to remember that your strength has a limit, but God's strength has no end. And when you live from his strength, you will discover the truth. You are not as weak as you feel. You are stronger than you ever imagined, not because of who you are, but because of who God is in you. His strength is your anchor, your power, your stability, and your victory. You stand today not because you are strong, but because he is your strength, and he will not fail you. The enemy always aims his attacks at what carries the greatest potential, the greatest calling, and the greatest anointing. He doesn't waste his energy on what is empty, purposeless, or powerless. He goes after what is valuable, and whether you feel it or not, whether you see it or not, whether you believe it yet or not, you are valuable to God, and the enemy knows it. That is why you've been under pressure. That is why you face so many battles. That is why it seems like you've been targeted from a young age. Like adversity found you before opportunity did. Like pain discovered you early. The enemy attacks most what God anoints most. If there were nothing in you worth fighting over, the enemy would leave you alone. If your future held no power, if your assignment carried no weight, if your calling had no influence, you would have lived an easy, unchallenged life. But the very fact that you have wrestled with battles others never understood is proof that there is something inside you that hell fears. The enemy sees the potential God placed in you even before you recognize it yourself. He sees the impact you're called to make. He sees the lives you are destined to touch. He sees the breakthrough you carry. He sees the generational strongholds that will fall because of your obedience. And because he sees all of that, he comes after you aggressively. Think about the patterns of your life, the times you were attacked in ways that didn't match your age, your situation, or your circumstances. Many of the battles you face weren't about who you were at that moment. They were about who you would become. The enemy wasn't fighting the present version of you. He was fighting the future version. The version of you that walks in confidence. The version of you that operates in purpose. The version of you that carries spiritual authority. The version of you that steps into destiny and becomes a weapon in God's hands. That version of you terrified the enemy, so he started fighting early. Sometimes the enemy fights you because you are anointed, but you don't know it yet. He fights you because you're gifted, but you haven't activated the gift yet. He fights you because you carry something holy, even if you haven't learned to use it. He fights you because you are a threat to darkness, even if you don't see yourself that way. The enemy recognizes the fingerprints of God on your life long before you recognize the blueprint of God for your future. This is why the attacks feel personal, because they are. The enemy isn't attacking random areas of your life. He is attacking the areas C, connected to your assignment. If you are called to lead, he attacks your confidence. If you are called to speak, he attacks your voice. If you are called to love deeply, he attacks your heart. If you are called to be a peacemaker, he attacks your peace. If you are called to walk in faith, he attacks your mind with fear. He tailors his attacks to sabotage the parts of you that God intends to use. You may look at your life and wonder, why does everything fight me? But the enemy fights what he fears. And he fears the person you're becoming. He fears the light inside you. He fears the purpose waking up in you. He fears the strength being activated in you. He fears the spiritual maturity rising in you. He fears the fire God put in your spirit, that unstoppable passion, that relentless resilience, that anointing that refuses to die, that destiny that refuses to be buried. He knows that once you fully step into who God created you to be, you will cause damage to his kingdom. So instead of asking, why me? Start asking, why not me? Why wouldn't the enemy attack someone who is chosen? Why wouldn't he target someone carrying breakthrough? Why wouldn't he go after someone whose prayers shake things in the spirit realm? Why wouldn't he try to discourage someone whose worship opens doors? Why wouldn't he pressure someone whose faith threatens hell itself? The attacks against you are not proof of your weakness. They are evidence of your worth. They are confirmation that you are carrying something powerful. They mean you are marked, chosen, and set apart. The enemy doesn't attack what doesn't matter. He only attacks what heaven has ordained. And the beautiful truth is this: no matter how hard he hits, he cannot stop what God has started in you. He cannot undo what God has established. He cannot reverse the anointing on your life. He can threaten, tempt, pressure, intimidate, and distract, but he cannot destroy the purpose that God placed inside you. You are protected by a God who fights for you. You are guarded by a God who surrounds you. You are strengthened by a God who empowers you. Every attack the enemy launches will ultimately fail because the God who called you is greater than the enemy who opposes you. What the enemy meant for evil, God will turn into elevation. What the enemy tried to use to silence you, God will use to strengthen you. What the enemy intended to break you, God will use to build you. Every battle you've faced is shaping you into a weapon that heaven will use mightily. Every struggle is sharpening you. Every hardship is preparing you. Every attack is positioning you for a level of authority you couldn't have reached without the pressure. So the next time you feel targeted, don't collapse. Don't panic. Don't question your value. Instead, recognize what it really means. The enemy is attacking you because you are anointed. He sees what God placed inside you, and he's terrified of what will happen when you realize it too. You are not being attacked because you are weak. You are being attacked because you are powerful, because you are chosen, because you are carrying something the enemy cannot stop. And no matter what comes against you, God will ensure that you rise. What tried to break you is actually building you. It may not feel like it in the moment, but every hardship, every painful season, every disappointment, and every challenge has been shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more spiritually grounded than you ever imagined. The things that were meant to crush you have been constructing you. The situations that look like setbacks have actually been setups. The pressure that felt like punishment has been preparation. God has been using the very experiences that wounded you to develop the character, maturity, resilience, and spiritual authority that will carry you into your destiny. When you walk through fire, you don't come out the same. The flames either destroy you or refine you, and God made sure they refined you. The heat didn't consume you, it purified you. It stripped away what was unnecessary. It removed what was fragile. It exposed what was weak, and in the process, it strengthened what was eternal. You are not the person you were before the storm, and that transformation is not by accident. It is intentional. God has been molding you through every single battle. Some of the greatest strength in you today was produced by the very moments you thought would take you out. Think about the heartbreak that once felt unbearable. It taught you how to love with discernment, how to value yourself, and how to recognize loyalty. Think about the betrayal that cut you deeply. It sharpened your awareness, deepened your wisdom, and taught you how to guard your heart without hardening it. Think about the disappointment that drained your hope. It redirected your trust away from people and into God. What hurt you did not weaken you, it built you. What tried to break your faith ended up deepening it. What tried to silence your voice ended up giving you a message. What tried to bury you ended up planting you. It's one of God's greatest mysteries. He allows certain storms not to sink you, but to strengthen you. He allows certain losses not to destroy you, but to develop you. He allows certain conflicts not to shut you down, but to shape you. You don't become strong by living an easy life. You become strong by facing what was meant to ruin you and discovering that you can rise above it. The enemy never anticipated that the attack he sent would produce a version of you that is wiser, tougher, and more dangerous to his kingdom. He thought the pressure would break why, but all it did was awaken you. He thought the pain would silence you, but it gave you a testimony. He thought the storm would drown you, but it taught you how to walk on waves. He thought the battle would wear you down, but it trained your hands for war. You are not leaving your past wounds empty-handed. You are carrying strength, insight, depth, and endurance you didn't have before. Every difficulty you've experienced has added something to you. Patience, empathy, courage, boldness, humility, vision, persistence, a deeper reliance on God. These qualities didn't come from peaceful seasons. They came from the pressure. They came from the nights you cried but kept praying. They came from the moments you felt weak but kept standing. They came from seasons of confusion where you chose to trust God anyway. They came from days when your strength was gone, but grace carried you. You didn't just go through hardship, you grew through hardship. You evolved, you matured, you learned, you became more stable, you became more surrendered, you became more rooted. What tried to break you actually gave you spiritual weight. You carry authority now, not the kind that comes from titles, platforms, or positions, but the kind that comes from survival, the kind that comes from knowing God intimately through struggle, the kind that comes from walking through deep valleys and discovering that God was still there, the kind that makes demons nervous because you've already faced hell and lived to tell about it. There's a version of you now that didn't exist before your pain. You have a strength that is quiet but unshakable. You have a peace that storms cannot steal. You have a hope that darkness cannot extinguish. You have a faith that roots itself in God, not circumstances. You have discernment sharpened by experience. You have endurance built through trials. You have courage shaped by seasons of fear. All of these things were formed in the fire. You were forged, not fragile. You were refined, not ruined. Sometimes God allows us to walk through situations that feel like breaking just so we can discover the strength He planted in us long before we ever needed it. You didn't know you could survive that level of pain until you did. You didn't know you could carry that kind of weight until you carried it. You didn't know you could forgive at that depth until forgiveness became your freedom. You didn't know you could rebuild until everything fell apart. And now, when new challenges arise, you do not stand as someone inexperienced or fragile. You stand as someone tested, proven, strengthened, and seasoned by life. You have already faced what was meant to break you, and you are still here, still standing, still breathing, still fighting, still believing. Nothing is wasted with God. Every tear had purpose. Every battle had meaning. Every setback carried instruction. Every disappointment carried direction. And every storm carried strength. The very things that once hurt you are now helping you. The very things that once scared you are now shaping you. The very things that once threatened to destroy you have become the tools God is using to build you. You are not broken. You are built. Built by grace. Built by endurance, built by experience, built by faith, built by the God who turned every attack into advancement, every burden into blessing, every trial into training, and every pain into purpose. The things that tried to break you have built you into someone unshakable, someone who will rise again every single time. God is the one who holds you together when everything else in life seems determined to pull you apart. There have been moments when you felt like your heart was splintering into pieces, moments when your mind was overwhelmed with thought. You couldn't quiet. Moments when stress stretched you so thin you felt like you were about to break. And yet, in all of those moments, something held you. Something kept you from collapsing. Something anchored you when life was shaking you. That something was not your strength, your intelligence, your experience, or your resilience. It was God Himself. It was His presence acting as the glue that kept you from falling apart under the pressure. You can look back over your life and see seasons where everything was unraveling. Relationships falling apart, finances drying up, family conflict erupting, unexpected losses piling up, disappointments arriving one after another. You were emotionally drained, spiritually tired, and mentally stretched. And still, somehow, you did not break. Somehow the pieces of your life didn't scatter. Somehow your faith didn't collapse even when your circumstances did. God was holding you together in ways you didn't even notice. Sometimes we expect God to fix everything around us, but what he often does first is stabilize what's within us. While the storm is raging outside, he strengthens your inner foundation. While people are walking away, he secures your identity. While doors are closing, he anchors your hope. When everything external feels unstable, he becomes your internal stability. God doesn't always calm the storm immediately. Sometimes he calms his child first so the storm no longer has the power to break them. There have been times when life pulled at you from every direction, when responsibilities multiplied, expectations increased, and the weight of what you were carrying felt too heavy for one person. You worried you wouldn't make it. You worried you were one moment away from shutting down completely. But right when you reached that breaking point, God stepped in. Not always visibly, not always dramatically, but powerfully and quietly. He whispered strength into your spirit. He breathed peace into your anxiety. He poured grace into your exhaustion. He fortified you from the inside out so that what was happening around you could not destroy you. God is not just your creator. He is your keeper. He is the one who sustains you when your strength runs out. He is the one who holds your broken pieces before they hit the ground. He's the one who protects your mind from spiraling into places that fear and despair want to take it. If the enemy had his way, you would have been torn apart mentally, emotionally, and spiritually a long time ago. But God didn't let it happen. He has been your shield, your stabilizer, your sustainer, and your silent protector in every season. You didn't recognize it, but when you cried yourself to sleep, God was holding your heart. When you woke up feeling empty, he was holding your purpose. When fear tried to grab hold of your mind, he was holding your thoughts. When stress made your chest tighten, he was holding your breath steady. When grief threatened to swallow you whole, he was holding your spirit upright. You didn't realize it at the time, but you were being held, carried even by a God who refuses to let you fall apart. There is a supernatural strength that surrounds those who trust in God. It doesn't mean life won't shake you. It doesn't mean you won't feel fear, sadness, or stress. But it does mean that none of those things will break you because God stands between you and the breaking point. He places himself like a wall, like a fortress, like an unshakable support, so that even when life applies pressure, it never reaches the core of who you are. He guards the part of you that matters most. He keeps your soul intact, even when circumstances are out of control. Sometimes God holds you together in ways you only understand in hindsight. You look back and think, how did I survive that? You reflect on seasons when you didn't have the resources, the strength, the clarity, or the support, and yet you made it. You didn't crumble. You didn't lose yourself. You didn't stay broken. And that realization becomes its own testimony. God held me. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't your ability. God was the one who kept you steady, kept you breathing, kept you anchored, kept you sane. And even now, he is holding you together in places you don't even know are fragile. You don't see every spiritual battle happening on your behalf. You don't see every attack God blocked before it reached you. You don't see every plan the enemy had that God interrupted. You don't see every breakdown that God prevented long before you ever felt the pressure. There are things that should have destroyed you, but they didn't. Not because you were strong, but because God would not allow it. You are not held together by circumstances. You are held together by Christ. You are not held together by your willpower. You are held by God's power. You are not surviving because you are unbreakable. You are surviving because God is unshakable. You are standing not because life has been gentle, but because God has been faithful. And the beautiful thing about being held by God is this: he never lets go. Even when you feel like you're slipping, his grip does not loosen. Even when you feel undeserving, his hold does not weaken. Even when you feel lost, he does not lose you. His hands have been under you, around you, and over you through every season, every storm, and every struggle. So the next time life tries to pull you apart, remind yourself of this truth. God is holding me, not my strength, not my circumstances, not my abilities, God. And because he is Holding me, I will not break. I may bend, I may shake, I may cry, I may struggle, but I will not fall apart. I am held by the one who created me. I am sustained by the one who redeemed me. I am kept by the one who loves me beyond measure. As long as God is holding you, nothing can break you. You are never as alone as you feel. Loneliness may whisper in your ear. Fear may tell you that you're isolated, and pain may try to convince you that no one sees what you're facing. But heaven has been closer to you than your own breath. Even in moments when you felt abandoned, forgotten, or misunderstood, God surrounded you. Even when people walked away, even when support disappeared, even when you were standing in a room full of people but still felt invisible, you were never unprotected. You are surrounded even when you feel alone. There were seasons when you prayed and didn't hear anything back. You cried out and the silence felt suffocating. You wondered if God was listening, if he cared, or if he even noticed what you were going through. Yet even in the silence, he was near. Silence is not absence. Stillness is not abandonment. God does some of his greatest work behind the scenes, in the places you cannot see, in the moments when you least expect it. Just because you didn't feel him doesn't mean he wasn't there. His presence is often subtle, quiet, steady, the kind of presence that holds you without drawing attention to itself. God surrounds you physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. He positions himself behind you to protect your past, in front of you to secure your future, beside you to walk you through the present, and above you to cover you from attacks you cannot see. When you feel alone, it is never because God has left you. It is because your emotions are louder than your awareness of his presence. Feelings can lie, fear can lie, trauma can lie, but God cannot lie. When he says, I will never leave you nor forsake you, that includes your darkest nights, your quietest tears, your most confusing seasons, and your most painful transitions. Sometimes God hides his presence only so he can reveal his power. Sometimes he allows you to feel alone so you learn to recognize the difference between people and God. People may leave, people may disappoint, people may fail you, but God remains constant. He stays when others walk away. He whispers when others fall silent. He comforts when others ignore. He lifts you up when others push you down. You are surrounded by a faithfulness that does not shift with seasons or change with circumstances. There were moments when you didn't see any way forward. Your situation looked hopeless. Every door seemed closed. Every path seemed blocked. You felt trapped, forgotten, and left to figure things out on your own. But even then, God was surrounding you with solutions you hadn't seen yet, with provision you didn't know was coming, with protection you didn't realize you needed. Before you prayed the prayer, God had already sent the answer. Before the problem arrived, God had already prepared the deliverance. You were surrounded by divine strategy, even when your eyes were too tired to see it. Angels have walked beside you in moments you thought you were alone. God assigned protection over you long before you knew how much danger you were in. There were accidents that could have happened but didn't. There were breakdowns that could have overtaken you but didn't. There were attacks the enemy launched that never reached you because God surrounded you like a shield. The enemy cannot penetrate what God protects. He cannot invade what God surrounds. He cannot destroy what God covers. You don't have to feel surrounded, tobe surrounded. God's presence is not limited to your emotions. If your awareness of God depended on how you feel, you would live in permanent instability. God's presence is consistent even when your feelings are inconsistent. He is working even when you feel numb. He is protecting even when you feel afraid. He is guiding even when you feel lost. He is strengthening even when you feel weak. You are covered by a presence that does not depend on your perception. You may have walked through seasons where people misunderstood you, criticized you, or judged you. You may have carried weights that no one offered to help lift. You may have faced battles that nobody knew you were fighting. But even when people failed you, God did not. He surrounded you with grace, with peace, with endurance, and with hope, invisible to others, but strong enough to hold you together. Just because people weren't there for you doesn't mean you were alone. People may disappoint, but God never abandons. Sometimes God removes certain people from your life to surround you more deeply with himself. Isolation can be a divine invitation. When God separates you from people, He is often drawing you closer to His presence. What feels like loneliness may actually be God clearing the noise so you can hear Him more clearly. What feels like abandonment may actually be protection. What feels like rejection may actually be redirection. And when you finally look back on the seasons that felt lonely, you will see God's fingerprints all over them. You will see that you were guided even when you thought you were wandering. You were protected even when you thought you were vulnerable. You were strengthened even when you thought you were collapsing. You were held even when you felt like you were falling. You were never alone, not for a moment, not for a second, not in your darkest hour, not in your lowest valley, not in your deepest pain. God surrounded you then, and He surrounds you now. His presence is your protection. His love is your covering. His angels are your guard. His spirit is your companion. So when loneliness whispers that no one is with you, remind yourself of the truth. I am surrounded by God's protection, surrounded by God's presence, surrounded by God's promises. I am never walking alone. And because God surrounds me, nothing can destroy me, nothing can overtake me, and nothing can separate me from His love.